And now, welcome everybody, and we have a very special, very important show today. This is about a very powerful movement in society in this day and age, atheism. And although atheism has been around for thousands of years, it really hasn't held the importance in the world that it does today, not even close. And that's a problem, and I'm going to outline that today for you. I'm going to let you know why I believe it is bad for society. Very much so. Now, probably less than 200 years ago, atheism was considered a curiosity by some. There were some, professional skeptics. Friedrich Nietzsche, who was he was a nihilist. He believed in basically what we have here in the natural world was all there is, and then oblivion, and you die and then there's nothing. There was no creator, there was absolutely nothing. And I fail to see how that can bring importance to the world in any way, shape, or form. But that being what it is, I think what we have to do is we have to explore, first of all, how we got where we are. How did this happen? And I think I can tell you how this happened. It's kind of it's a little trick, because you see, before a few disgruntled scientists got involved in the 1800s, we didn't have these problems. We kind of had a coexistence, a peaceful coexistence of healthy skepticism and religion, spiritual belief, a belief in a creator, something greater than ourselves, an intelligent designer, as it were. We had this, and it was okay at the time. It seemed to work okay. Now, of course, we have, science, what they call science, taking over, and essentially telling us that they have no room for God now. There is no room for God, and because science has figured it all out. And so we have people today that are touting this. Even Charles Darwin himself, although he studied evolution and came up with a process that he called natural selection, he wasn't quite convinced. Now, I'm not going to say that he made a deathbed confession and denounced everything he had believed in, which he did not. He didn't make some kind of a confession. I'm sure he did believe in what he was saying, or at least thought he believed it. But, we come to the point where, is there evidence or proof of atheism or the lack of God? And I will tell you today, there is none. You will not find any evidence, and especially no proof, that God does not exist. And see, this is the problem. This is where it becomes dangerous, because you have people who pass this off as truth. They pass atheism off as truth. Professional hucksters of philosophy. People like Sam Harris. I don't know if you've heard of Sam Harris, but I'll show you his mug here. This here is Sam Harris. I'm going to quote here, you can see it right here on the screen, what he said. This is him saying, "As an atheist, I am angry that we live in a society in which the plain truth cannot be spoken without offending 90% of the population. The first thing I want to do is I want to focus on one word," where he said the plain truth. The problem with that statement is that what he is saying is not necessarily true. In fact, it isn't true. There is no way to prove that God does not exist. In fact, if you look at the laws of the universe itself, we find that to say that God doesn't exist would violate many of these laws. Because you see, you have order. You have such a degree of specific order. It's so intricate. And what some scientists would call an irreducible complexity, which means that this whole concept of macroevolution, or first of all, the spontaneous generation of life from nothing, and of course the process of natural selection, undirected mutations creating more complex life. It's literally impossible to achieve this without an intelligent designer. Nature shows us this. Think of it yourself. If you were given a set of tools and some, various pieces of wood and metal, you can put something together. You can create a birdhouse or any other useful product. But it's you. It's your mind, the intelligence of your mind and your body parts, your hands and the strength of your arms, everything you have to marshal those resources to create a product. That's what you're doing. Okay? So to say that life itself, which is far more complex than anything a human being has ever created, to say that that was not put together by an intelligent designer, someone greater than ourselves, is foolishness. It's foolishness to even suggest such a thing. So I just wanted to repeat this. For him to say that he's going to first of all get angry about saying his opinion, not the truth, his opinion, and then someone's going to be offended by that. Well, one of the reasons why they're offended is because it's not the truth. What he's saying is not true. And so these people are saying, look, I have the truth in me. I know what's right. Now, we may not know exactly what's on the other side of this life. There is a creator who has, in many religious circles, has said that there is a life after this one, that we don't die, we go on to something else. In other words, we are eternal beings. Okay, that is something that is believed by, millions and billions of people around the world, and of course also touted by countless religious texts and philosophies worldwide. That's a fact. It's touted worldwide. So, although we can't prove exactly what it is, we do know there's something. We have evidence of it. We've seen it. We've done studies, and we know. We know that there's something more than what we have here in this natural world. So someone like Sam Harris, look, he's a professional huckster of his own brand of philosophy, and Sam Harris has even gone as far as to not just criticize religion and belief in God as simply foolhardy. He's gone on to say that it's dangerous. He's actually said that it's not safe because it's been harmful to people. And I reject that. I'm not saying that any religion, there are religions that have actually been harmful, but it's only because they've taken it that far. You have to use your rational mind to understand that a religion that would advocate violence for no good reason is obviously not a worthwhile religion to pursue. We know that. That's a fact. You can say what you want, but that's a fact. But to say religion in general, or a belief in a creator, not only who created us, but loves us and cares about us, to call that foolish or dangerous, I think it's dangerous for Sam Harris to say that. I think it's very dangerous for him to say that. So from a scientific standpoint, I've made the point that it is not a good thing. It is not a good thing to believe that we have proof that there is no God. In fact, the opposite is true. We know that through natural law, that the very laws of nature tell us that to have a intricate, complicated, piece of equipment, whether it be a watch or a computer or anything that moves or anything that has form or shape that has usefulness to human beings and has more than one part in it. Okay, that tells us that there's something that has created that. And then we get into the concept of Occam's razor. You ever heard of Occam's razor? Occam's razor says that the most plausible explanation, the most simple explanation is usually the correct one. Well, again, we can reason that the most plausible explanation, the most simple one, is that yes, an intelligent mind created what we see here today, which is life. And the reason why we know that is because Occam's razor, again, says the most simple explanation. That is the most simple explanation. Because we see it in nature now. We see that we, as humans, can create other things that are not created by just nature itself. You need an outside influence, in other words, an intelligent mind, something that is able to take those tools and take the requisite parts and put them together to make something, that will work, that will function. So we know that Occam's razor works in the favor of those who believe in an intelligent designer, in a God. So Sam Harris, sorry, you lose. I'm sorry to have to tell you that. I didn't want to tell you that, but it's a fact. You are, in fact, a loser, Mr. Sam Harris. Go to the back of the class. So there's other people that have that continue to advocate this this belief system. Richard Dawkins is another one. Now Dawkins is interesting because Dawkins is the type that, let's see him again. Richard Dawkins is the type. There he is, right there. There's the man. I only did that because I feel sorry for him. He fancies himself a scientist, but he's again just another atheist philosopher who believes that nothing else. That's it. We're here and then gone, and that's the end of us. And of course, someone famously asked him at one time, if God didn't create us, then where did we come from? Now, it was an interesting question. He kind of hesitated, and he said that it might have been like maybe an alien, what did he call it? An advanced alien species, an advanced alien civilization brought us here. Well, if you think about it, I want you to think really clearly about this. What is an advanced alien civilization or an advanced alien species? If you're advanced, that means what? You have a higher mind than humans, more intelligent than we are, okay? If you're an alien, that means you're not from this world. So that's two things. He's right. He's right. Finally, Richard Dawkins got it right. Yeah. You know what the problem is? He forgot to identify that is what God is. God is alien to this world. Even though he created it, he doesn't, live here now. He separated himself from it, if you remember, because of mankind's disobedience to him. So now we're looking at it this way. So Richard Dawkins is right. He actually got it right, but it's kind of obtuse of him if you think about it. He's saying that, well, it can't be a God. There can't be an intelligent designer like God who oversees us. No, it had to be another kind of a God. That's really what he's saying. It's some other God, some other disinterested God that kind of dropped us off here like a bus driver and just took off. That's really what he wants, because these people don't want accountability. Let's be honest. They don't want accountability. That's what it comes down to. It's really sad if you think about it. It's really, really sad. But it is what it is. So, it really really upsets me. It really upsets me that people like this are given such a powerful platform. And it's more than just a powerful platform. It is, they essentially corner the market now on information. They don't allow us to teach, even in our schools, they don't allow us to teach intelligent design, okay, the high probability that there was something greater than us with a higher mind than we have that created life on this planet. The schools won't even let us teach that now. And that's what's dangerous, because now you have people, entire generations of people for the last more than 100 years learning that really you're just an accident. You came from some accidental combination of different materials that coagulated into to a one-celled organism that somehow magically became the life we are today. And so you got a bunch of people, of course they're going to believe it now, and they're not going to believe in God. So now you got more people. I'm not saying that more people are atheists, but what I am saying is more people are doubting that God exists. Because you see, there's something inside of us. The reason why not everyone is an atheist, and this is very important, it really is important to mention this. The reason why most people are not atheists is because there's something inherent in mankind that does understand and know deep down that there is a God. There is a creator. They know it. But because it's been suppressed by scientific peoples, by the scientific community for so many decades, nearly 2 centuries, that they're afraid to explore it. They're afraid to come out and say, you know what, man, I really believe there's a God. I don't know exactly what it is. I mean, some people do. Some of us do know and understand who God is. But many people don't. But they still believe that God exists. But the scientific community has them doubting it, doubting their own inner self. See, God put it in us to believe in Him and understand and know Him. It's in us. But because we disobeyed Him, because we want our own life, because we're so selfish, and we're so arrogant, and we think we are the new gods. And that's really what these scientists and these modern-day atheistic philosophers are saying. They're saying that, no, we don't need God because we are God. Our society is God. Our civilization and species, we are God. Even though the individual dies, the species lives on as an ever-increasing deity. Now that becomes a problem in many ways, because our nature still hasn't changed. I mean, murders are still taking place. Heinous crimes around this world against innocent people are happening every day, more and more. We haven't changed. We really haven't. We've been a little bit more technologically advanced. We can go a little faster. We can do a little bit more. Fly a little higher. You know, go places we've never been able to go before. You know, we've dusted off our feet on the moon. But we haven't really changed. Not really. We've just gotten worse. So what I wanted to say is that we have these, we have these people that continue to push this, and because they use science as their crutch. Science is like a bully pulpit, because they say, well, we don't need God, we have science, we're very intelligent, we're smarter than the average person, and we've already studied this, and we know the science is clear on this. The science is settled, it's clear, you just have to believe it. You have people like Bill Nye, the science guy. He's not a scientist. He's an engineer. He has an engineering degree. But he really is not somebody who is qualified to tell us whether God exists or not, or whether we came from some accident of nature. He can't tell us that. And nobody else can either. There is so much wrong with science trying to say that we are just an accident, that we really don't have any real meaning beyond the natural world. That's it. You're just going to live, you're going to die. And we all came about by just a random, undirected mixture of chemicals and organisms, little small microscopic and atomic particles. That's all we are. There's so much wrong with that, and I can get into it. I do have a science background. I understand certain things. I do. Now, yes, does that mean that these scientists are not as intelligent as I am? No, many of them are they're far further intelligent. They have much more intelligence than I do. But you see, they are specialists. They focus on a particular thing. They know certain mechanisms. They know how they work. They just don't know how they got here. They can't prove that. So they try to come up with a theory as to how it happened. The problem is that none of their theories can be proven just by looking at the mechanism itself and seeing how it operates. You can't prove how it got here by how it operates. I'm sorry. You just can't. You can't do it. It's not possible to do that. And that's their problem. what they did was they came up with, it's kind of a form of inductive reasoning, but it's a false inductive reasoning. It's circular logic, because their first hypothesis was, oh, this came together by natural selection. It was an undirected process of building upon itself. Some accident happened, and then it began to build upon itself, and went from one thing to something more complicated to more complicated. It just adapted to its environment, and now here we are. The problem is that's their hypothesis. But just looking at those things and trying to come up with a theory based on a hypothesis that doesn't have anything to prove it, you have to have something to prove the hypothesis. And so they try to say that the uniformity of the different parts of each species, they have similarities. They call it homogeneity. Those things are similar, so therefore that means they all came from a common ancestor. You can't prove that. That's not how that works. Just because something is homogeneous and has a similar makeup does not prove that it came from a common ancestor. It's actually more probable that a creator, an intelligent designer, put things together in a similar fashion, because it's, first of all, easier to design that way. It's easier to design a house when it has similar structure to it. When you try to get too complicated and move outside of the parameters of a design feature, and engineering, something within engineering that works with the laws of physics and nature, if you try to go outside of that and do something a little bit different, it gets dicey, and you run into problems because things don't congeal. They don't work together well. You have to have some kind of a homogeneity to make that work properly together. So I look at it this way: God, or an intelligent designer, designed things very similarly. The structure of the hand, it looks similar to a lot of other, like, bird appendages at the ends. Those things are, if you make them similarly, it's easier to kind of, to create that design, and because it worked in one, it's going to work similarly in others. It's, the design works. Why do you have to mess with it? Why would you want to make it completely different? There's no reason to do that. So they have these problems thinking, because they come up with this hypothesis, and they pretty much, well, that's the way it is, so therefore this proves that. None of those things prove each other. None of those things prove each other. Here's another problem. They talk about how one thing became another thing. Well, how do things regenerate? They regenerate through what? Either what's called either mitosis or meiosis. Mitosis, cell division. They reproduce themselves. Well, how did they do that? Because you see, cell division, the reproduction of a cell, that's something that is very complicated. That didn't happen. It's not possible for it to have happened initially, because cell division is a complicated process that would have happened, many, many millions of years and millions of processes later. So you can't create something new if you don't have a process for mitosis and for cell division. And therefore, this is what we call the law of irreducible complexity. You can't have something, more complicated, okay, if you didn't even have the process in place to reproduce it in the beginning. That's one part of irreducible complexity. Another part of irreducible complexity is that you cannot have something that is so complicated that didn't come before it. It's very similar to what I was saying before, only farther along in the process. Let's say you have, how do you create a more complicated eye if you didn't have the makings for an eye in the first place? You can't change one thing. If you try to change one thing along the process, it might mess up everything before it, and so it's not going to work. Those things just do not work. I'm sorry, but that's just the case. And I know that they want to say that it works, but it absolutely does not work. So, we're determining here that we have a problem. We have a problem with all of these things that the scientists are trying to say have no proof. Okay. Now here's a fellow that you might find Very entertaining. I like his humor. He's a very funny guy. Mr. Rowan Atkinson, very funny comedian. One of the most funny comedians of our time. I love the guy as far as his comedy. But when it comes to his beliefs, I think I have to take a pass on that, okay? So I'll read this here to you. You know, what is wrong with inciting intense dislike of a religion if the activities or teachings of that religion are so outrageous, irrational, or abusive of human rights that they deserve to be intensely disliked? Now, there are certain religious beliefs that, yes, he's right about that. And I'm hoping, I'm not going to accuse him of saying this about all religious belief or all, belief in a God. So maybe I'm kind of speaking, speaking incorrectly about what his intention is here, and I hope he would correct me on this if I'm wrong. But if he's talking about just a general belief in God when it comes to this, there's nothing abusive about believing in God. In fact, it's a wonderful belief. It's very good for society, and that's where I want to go to next. I want to go to this next because I think it's important to do that. I think we have to understand that it's very dangerous to to just assume that it's okay to tell people that, oh, there's no God. That's a very dangerous thing to tell people, and I'll tell you why it's very dangerous to tell people that. It's dangerous to tell them that because psychologically that is damaging to society. And I think this is the most important thing because some of these other things, they're philosophical arguments, scientific arguments that have their place in academia, and obviously it's good to have the argument. But when you talk about psychological conditioning and you talk about the psyche of mankind, there are certain people, maybe these atheists, that can handle the idea that, okay, there's nothing, I'm going to live my life, I'm going to live it up, I'm going to enjoy my time that I have in this consciousness, and then when it's over, there's nothing I can do about it. There's a lot of people that can handle that, but there's many people that cannot handle that. And I don't just mean that it will torment them and make them depressed and create all kinds of issues in that regard. Yes, it will. First of all, it's not good. It's not good to tell somebody, yeah, there's no God, your life is meaningless, what's the point? And that's really what they're saying. They can try to dress it up. They can try to put lipstick on that pig and make people feel like it's a good thing, it's a wonderful thing to believe that there's nothing. Just, hey, we have our own morality. We don't need God. You'll be all right. You'll just live out your whatever it is, 50 years, 60 years, 70 years, and then you die. And then that's it. I hope you had a good time. Well, first of all, let's dig. You want to get ugly in this? Let's get ugly. Let's dig into the dirt a little bit here. This is where it gets ugly, and this is where they have no answers. What about the people that lived a terrible life? They never had any justice. They weren't rich, or not. They just didn't have a generally good life. There's many middle-class people and even some poor people that lived a good life, that enjoyed their time here on earth. I'm sure they did. We all have our ups and downs. Nobody gets through this life unscathed. Everybody goes through something. But I will say that there are some people who were born in poverty and they were maybe tormented by evil people, tormented by evil governments. They were never free. They lived in countries where freedom didn't exist. Okay, there were people that just went through the most unimaginable horrors in life. Could you imagine those people being told, and many were, and many still are, told, yeah, there's really nothing after this. There's nothing. Just try, do the best you can. Thank you very much. Enjoy. See ya. What you're telling people is that, oh, well, sucks to be you. That's what you're saying to them. I'm sorry, but you know what? Whether or not there is a God and there's a life after this, it's a terrible thing to tell them that there is nothing else. It's a terrible thing. And, I find it ironic that a lot of the people that say that believe in nothing after this, or there's no God, or there's no, that's it, this is all there is. It's funny, those are the people, many of them are like rich and famous. They've had an awesome life, a fabulous time in this world. They've loved and lived and loved and done whatever they were able to do, whatever they wanted to do. They had whatever they wanted. And many of them were famous in Hollywood or in academia or in science. They were respected worldwide. They were swell guys and gals. Everybody loved them. They never had a care in the world. It's funny and easy for them to say what they say. But what about the poor children born in India, in poverty, or in Africa, or born under the iron fist of Chinese communism or Russian communism? What about those people? You know, where's the justice? And I'm sorry to say, I don't care if you say, well, oh, you can't prove that. How dare you tell them that something that's not true? First of all, there's no evidence that it's not true that there's something else. There's no evidence that there is no justice. In fact, there's more evidence that there is justice. You know how we know? Let's go back to Occam's razor. Occam's razor says the simplest explanation wins out. Well, what do we do? What do humans do? I always go back to human behavior because we are the most intelligent and effective species on the planet. We built civilization. We are the ones that are the biggest single contributors to civilization and to change on this planet. Okay? Bar none. There are no other species. There might be some pretty intelligent species. Yes, there are. They say whales, dolphins, certain kinds of cats and dogs. Yeah, they're pretty intelligent creatures. Even some birds. Very intelligent birds. But you know what? None of them built civilization. None of them. We did. So if you look at humans, we have to kind of look into the human mind to figure out where we go with this. What does the human mind do in regards to justice? Now look, I'm not telling you that justice is always served the right way. Sometimes justice in this world is deferred. We do the best we can. Many people say that O.J. Simpson murdered his wife and that young man. Many people still believe that, yet he got off for that alleged crime. Okay? Was justice served? Many would say not. And that's another reason. Justice was not served here on this planet. There are many that wish him the flames of hell. And I certainly won't go there because I don't wish anybody hell, by the way. I don't wish that on my worst enemy, on the worst human being that ever existed on the planet. I simply do not. But I would say I definitely want justice to be served upon them. I want them to understand that what they did definitely deserves justice. So that's what we do. What do? We set up courts and we try our very best to serve up justice. So if you're going to tell me that human beings who are the most intelligent and effective species on this planet, if we do that, then odds are there is something greater than us that has placed that within us. It's Design 101, Engineering 101. We have designed computers with algorithms, and we design those computers to perform functions for us. We expect them to mimic our behavior. We want them to do what we tell them to do. It's as simple as that. And what happens? Most of the time it works unless we program it wrong, and then everything goes haywire. But at the very least, that's our desired result. So it stands to reason, if you want to get into regression, if you want to call it regression of sorts, or progression, whatever you want to say, something greater than us. I call it regression because something greater than us, more intelligent than us, designed us. So therefore, we do the best we can. We're not as perfect as it, or as intelligent as it, but we do the best we can. Well, in kind, if you look regressively, if you go down the line, just like gravity, everything runs downhill. Running downhill, what we design now will not be as intelligent as ourselves, but it will be functional. It will do generally what we tell it to do, and it will do the best it can do. So as you can see, everything seems to work that way. Everything seems to go in that direction. Now, as scientists, because they think they're smart, they think they want to throw a wrench in it all the time because, they already have their theory. Don't mess with their theory. They call it the scientific method. They're full of baloney. They don't want to, they don't want their theory tinkered with. So what will they tell you? Well, it's counterintuitive. It's counterintuitive, but no, it doesn't really work that way because we found that some obscure fish in the depths of the oceans doesn't behave that way, so we have to change the entirety of science to appease this one species that we found. And by the way, it's only one species. We didn't find any more, but we will. Don't worry, in time we will, because after all, time is what gives us what we want, the billions of years. Of course, they don't tell you that according to evolutionary theory, it wouldn't take even billions of years to get where we are now. It would theoretically take trillions, quadrillions, perhaps Googles of time, believe it or not, to get where they want to get. So there's so many flaws in it, but beyond the flaws, okay, let's get back, Mike, get back to the psychology of this. If somebody is told, yeah, this is it, guys, this is it, you're done. You live out your life, you're done. So let's just say you live past the age of 50 or 60, you had a good life. Okay. But again, putting aside those people who lived a short life, very painful life, nothing good ever happened to them, or at least very little. Maybe some of them died of horrible diseases, went through hell, went through the worst imaginable hell, even before they died for many years. Yeah, there's no justice for you, buddy. No, I know you had cancer, and you were living on machines for the last 5 years of your life. But you know what? Nah, there's no justice. Sorry, sucks to be you. Goodbye. Pull the plug. Okay, let's put that aside. Let's talk about those that, and don't tell me that this doesn't happen. This is the way we think. This is human nature. It's another reason why God gave us the heave-ho. There's another reason why God kind of kicked us to the curb back in the day. Because we're selfish. We're selfish bastards. Let's be honest, okay? Can we call ourselves what we are? Okay. So here's what happened. You tell somebody, yeah, that's it. That's all there is. There's nothing more. Now remember, if you tell somebody that once, it's not going to get right into them. But because it's already ingrained in society, because society has already said, since childhood these people are taught this in our schools, they don't let any kind of godliness into our schools, any kind of teaching of an intelligent designer that loves us and cares, and put within us this code to be able to develop incredible inventions. So we're kind of a copycat of this God, by the way, who said he created us in his image. It kind of follows what humans do. We create these computers according to our own designs and in our image. Notice how we're trying to make robots that look like we do. So you see it's going in that direction. Well, why doesn't it stand to reason again that back above us back there, there's something that is greater than us that is, making us, that made us in his image. It makes sense, guys. Come on, follow me here. Get this vision. It's important that you get this vision. So, again, back to the flawed human mind in this regard, because we're so selfish, that we thought within ourselves that as we grew older, we're taught that there's nothing. So here's what we're going to think. Now, of course, the scientists and the critics and the skeptics will say, well, wait a minute, you don't see people going around killing each other because they don't think there's anything beyond this. Well, first of all, they're not going to do that because they know that's not advantageous to them as well, because they'll end up in prison. Because remember, we do have a semblance of justice in this world, as much as we can. If you murder somebody, you go to jail for at least a very long time, if not life. Therefore, you kind of ruin your life. So you're not going to want to do that. But I'll tell you what you are going to want to do. You are going to want to do terrible things that are not against the law, but things that are going to enhance you regardless of whether they help somebody else or not. Number one, for instance, cheating on a spouse or significant other. It's not illegal after all, at least not here in America. Maybe in other places it is. But for example, you cheat on your spouse and yeah, you're going to cause turmoil. You're going to hurt some people, aren't you? But maybe it made you feel happier for whatever reason. But you caused so much turmoil and so much pain, and there's no consequence. It doesn't matter, because you're only going to live a few years and then you're going to die, and then it's not going to matter to you. And what do you care? You're dead, right? That's the attitude. And don't tell me you're not thinking it. Because there's people out there that are watching me right now that have thought that, and they're thinking that now. Some of them. And some of them have done it. And it isn't just cheating, it's also stealing. You stole from somebody, and you thought, I got away with it. Okay, somebody got hurt, but not me. I'm feeling pretty good. And guess what? I didn't get caught, and it wasn't really enough to go to jail for. You know, maybe I would have got a fine for it, maybe. But you know what? It felt good at the time, and I'm okay. Oh well. You know, or maybe you insulted somebody and made them feel really horrible, and you harassed them maybe, and bullied them for many years, and it wasn't really illegal. All you did was browbeat them with your mouth. You just said, nah, you're, whatever you said, terrible. Oh, you'll never amount to anything. You're terrible. It's just some parents say that to their kids, and so you think, oh, there's no justice. It doesn't gonna matter, because when I'm dead, I'm gone. In other words, that's a selfish person. There's a lot of those on this planet, are there not? Yeah. So to say, but what if you tell somebody, let's put the shoe on the other foot here. Let's tell somebody that there is a creator and he holds you accountable for your behavior. And you can't just do these things unscathed. Or maybe this creator even puts it in your heart that if you get close to the creator, if you pray and if you ask him to help you in your life and do the best you can, that you won't want to hurt people, that you'll want to do good for people. And that, because you've lived well and done good for people, your accountability is for good things. You're going to be accounted for in a wonderful way when this life is over. Do you see the difference? Now, whether or not that's true, does it really matter in this life? Many would say not, because, hey, in this life, whether it's true or whether it's not true, the psychological benefits of believing that far outweigh the psychological damage that is done by telling somebody that, nah, that's it. Live 80 years, 100 years maybe if you're lucky, and then it's lights out, baby. Lights out. Okay, I'm sorry, but there's too much damage there. There's too much that can go wrong with that theory. So, I'll say this. I have nothing against anyone who would want to believe that. If you want to believe there's no God, that's great. If you want to have a debate with somebody who does believe in God and who has, a very strong stance on that and can back it up with evidence, or at least a lack of evidence. In other words, at least to be able to say, where is your evidence? Challenge someone with that. I have no problem with you believing it. But I do have a problem, I think, with the pervasive societal repression of belief in God. In other words, someone saying that you can't teach intelligent design as a viable theory in our schools to our children. That has to come back, and it has to come back in a big way, because we need to put more balance in society. We need to tell people this. This is what we need to tell people. We need to tell them that, yes, there are those that believe there is no God and there is no life after death. There is nothing beyond this. There are those that believe it, and they will tout evidence. But there really isn't evidence to prove that. And we have this other theory called intelligent design that actually follows more closely with science. It actually follows more philosophical logic and reason. It stands to reason much more closely to reality than any kind of atheistic or agnostic belief. I'm sorry, but it's true, guys. And so we got to get rid of that. We have to get rid of this notion that there's only one way to see the world, and we're only going to teach this side because the modern-day scientist has said so. The modern-day scientist has come up with a flawed theory, and they're using it to try to prove itself through circular logic. And it doesn't work. You can't prove a theory with a couple of pieces of scant evidence that really are not evidence, because you're just making an assumption about those specific things. This is the thing about scientists. Scientists are very good at, focus. They're very good at their specialty. They can look at something and they can examine it for its function, but they're really not good at the big picture. Scientists are not good at the big picture. They're specialists. That's why most managers are not the scientists, or at least not the scientists who are specialists. Most managers are more general in their understanding, and their breadth of knowledge, and their understanding of different things. For instance, management and human resources, things like that. When you're in a company, a manager has to manage many different aspects of a business. They have to manage the math, the books, the everything, payroll, you name it. There's so many things to study and to understand to run a company or to run anything. Even if it's an academic institution dealing with the scientists. There are many scientists who are very good at studying specific things, and they can give you good information about the function of something. But if you ask them to understand why it functions the way it does and how that applies to life, they're not going to come up with a good answer for you, guys. They're just not going to. It's not going to happen, okay? It's just something that's not going to happen. So, we have to tell these people that you cannot anymore use the theory that you have that there's no God, using evolution and spontaneous generation out of nothing, all that stuff is real. No, it's not real. There's nothing that can prove it. And we haven't been able to come up with anything that's going to, and even if we could, it would take so many years from now. It would take thousands of years, perhaps millions of years to figure everything out. Let's just kind of go with a theory that's good for people. And before you say that, well, you can't prove that there's a God, look, we have strong evidence, and that's good enough. And even if it's not true, it's psychologically better to tell people that there is. That just works well with the human psyche. And we know that. As long as you have with it the understanding of accountability, it works very well with people. That's been proven. It has been proven. And I'm sorry you cannot prove otherwise. I would love to hear all the arguments from these skeptics. I'd love to have them. I want any atheist that sees this video, please try to pick it apart. I'm serious. Try to pick apart this video, what I'm saying, because you can't. You don't have enough evidence. You don't have anything. And I'm sorry you don't. So this is where we need to go. We have to come up with a solution for this, and that's what I'm about. I want solutions. I was thinking that it's also not a good idea for the clinical experts, those that are involved in clinical therapies for people that are having problems. I think it's wrong for them to express an atheistic view towards their clientele. I think, again, just my opinion, I think it should be considered a crime. Because what you're telling them is that no matter what I tell you, you're still going to die and get nothing in this world. You're done. You got nothing. I don't like that. I think it's wrong, and I think you should be held criminally liable for telling them that. I think you should tell them that there may be a creator. If you don't want to tell them there is, if you want to tell them, well, it's not ethical to tell them there is if I don't know that there is, or that there's, you're never going to be able to prove there's not. So you can't say there's not for sure, and yet you do because you're liars. But what I would say is there's a way to do it tastefully and very wisely to try to show these people that, hey, there is evidence that there's something beyond this. We've done the studies, and we're studying it more every day. We're learning more and more all the time. But, if there is, then there is justice. Don't worry about it. Just meditate on those good things. I think that's the direction we need to go in. Let's not call this a crime. And, let's not call it a crime to teach that, God is at the doorstep. That, more than likely there is a creator of mankind and of life. There is an intelligent designer that put us together fearfully and wonderfully. Okay, let's teach that. Okay, guys. Yeah, I've had it with atheists and the way they've hijacked society in the last 150 to 200 years. These people are just awful. Friedrich Nietzsche. The nihilist that was just, I guess, godless to the end. These people just they've done a great and grand disservice to the world, to mankind. And I'm sorry, but they have. So, again, if you guys, any atheists out there, want to debate me on this or to pick this apart if you wish, go ahead. Try it. Try it. I dare you. You're not going to get very far because I'm telling you, you don't have any answers. You have a couple of things that you study. You throw out a couple of scientific, facts from little bits and pieces of information, yet none of them prove anything. They don't prove that there's no creator. In fact, they prove the opposite if you really study. If you don't try to take your original hypothesis, because your hypothesis has not only never been proven, but it's been blown out of the water by science itself, yet you'll never admit that. So it's time for you to start admitting that. Why don't you just admit it? Come on. Admit it, guys. Oh, I'm telling you. Guys, listen, if you liked this, or even if you didn't like this, go ahead and like this video, share it wherever you find it, and just, of course, subscribe, hit the bell, and I'll be right back. Hey guys, if you want more great content from me, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Come on, what are you waiting for? Thank you very much for that, and like I said before, I want to thank everybody for watching, and don't be a stranger. Look through my videos, you might find some of them interesting, and of course, at the end of this, go ahead and take a look at the ones that YouTube has suggested. If you're on YouTube, you might be seeing this on another platform, but go ahead and visit my YouTube if you're not seeing this on the YouTube platform. Of course, I'm under Michaelantonio, and I'll put a link in the comments section for you. But guys, yeah, all these people, like Richard Dawkins and people like that, and of course Sam Harris, and people like that. Their philosophy is very not only just anti or just a non-belief in God, but it's also antagonistic towards those who believe. They're very angry at those who believe in God, and they seem to be angry at God too, even though they don't believe in Him. How ironic does that sound? But it's true, guys. It's true. Okay, thank you so much for watching. But what do you think about this theory that we need to, we need to get away from telling people there is no God because it's dangerous for society? So I want you to go ahead and give me your thoughts on that. Comment, whatever platform you're in, give me your comments. I'll try to answer you if I possibly can. And this is very important, guys. We've got to spread the message. If you want to see more of this content, please share my videos and say hello, like everything that I put out, so you'll be able to get more of me. That's how to do it. So thank you so much, guys, and I want you to have a great day or evening. Ciao, everybody.
Find something new. There's no other way to let you know it's time for you to go.